রেকর্ডিং শুরু।
ঠিক আছে,
ওই দিকটা নিতে হবে না।
ঠিক আছে।
প্রিয় সহকর্মী দাদা ও দিদিদের উদ্দেশ্যে বলছি, আমরা জানি যে রিফ্রেশার এবং ওরিয়েন্টেশন কোর্স যে সকল আমাদের অধ্যাপক এবং অধ্যাপিকা দাদা দিদিরা করে এসেছেন এবং যারা করেননি তাদের নিজ নিজ ক্ষেত্রে যে জায়গায় তারা স্বাচ্ছন্দ্য ফিল করেন সেই বিষয়ে অন্যান্য সহকর্মীদের মধ্যে নলেজ শেয়ারের যে আলোচনা চক্র মাননীয় অধ্যক্ষ মহাশয়ের নির্দেশে শুরু হয়েছিল, আজকে তার ফেজ 4-এ আমরা শুনবো আলোচনা। আজকের এই ফেজে আলোচনা করবেন আমাদের মহাবিদ্যালয়ের দর্শন বিভাগের অধ্যাপক আমাদের দাদা সমতুল্য প্রাণদা। এছাড়া আলোচনা করবেন আমাদের কলেজের ইংলিশ বিভাগের অধ্যাপক তথা আমাদের মহাবিদ্যালয়ের অধ্যক্ষ মহাশয় সুপ্রীতিবাবু, আমাদের স্যার। আর আলোচনা করবেন আমাদের ইংলিশ বিভাগের অধ্যাপক প্রদীপ্ত দা। তো আজকে আমরা এই তিনজনের শুনবো এবং আবার পরবর্তী ফেজ আমাদের মে মাসের 2 তারিখে হবে। আমি প্রথমেই এই আলোচনায় অংশগ্রহণ করার জন্য এবং নলেজ আমাদের উদ্দেশ্যে শেয়ার করার জন্য প্রাণদাকে আহ্বান করছি।
নমস্কার শ্রদ্ধেয় অধ্যক্ষ মহাশয় এবং উপস্থিত সকলকে আমার যথাযোগ্য সম্মান জানাই। আমার বিষয় হচ্ছে প্রয়োজনকে সংযত রাখা, খাদ্য সুরক্ষা ও নগরায়ণ সাম্যাবস্থার একটি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ শর্ত। শুরু করছি আমি। অতি প্রাচীনকাল থেকে মানুষের সমাজ জীবনের একটি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বৈশিষ্ট্য হল খাদ্যের জন্য অবিরাম এক লড়াই। এই লড়াই কখনো চোখের সামনে লুট, মারামারি ও দাঙ্গার মাধ্যমে, আবার কখনো চোখের আড়ালে সামাজিক ও আর্থিক বিধিনিয়মের মাধ্যমে। তবে যেভাবেই হোক সবই যেন খাদ্য সংগ্রহের জন্য। এই লড়াই আছে পারিবারিক জীবনে, সমাজ ব্যবস্থায়, রাজনৈতিক ব্যবস্থায়, বাজার ব্যবস্থায়। বর্তমানে খাদ্য সুরক্ষা একটি অতি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয়। প্রতিনিয়ত যেভাবে নগরায়ন ঘটে চলেছে, পরিণতিস্বরূপ অদূর ভবিষ্যতে দেখা যাবে হয়তো সকলের জন্য ন্যূনতম খাবারটুকু নেই। সেদিন যেদিকে দৃষ্টি যাবে, যতদূর দৃষ্টি যাবে, শুধুই দেখা যাবে অট্টালিকা, ইট পাথরের প্রাসাদ। বর্তমান বা ভবিষ্যতের এই অবস্থার জন্য দায়ী আমাদের সমাজের কিছু স্বার্থপর মানুষ, যারা অতিরিক্ত বিলাসিতায় মত্ত। মানুষ সমাগত, সমাজবদ্ধ যে সামাজিক গোষ্ঠী, প্রতিষ্ঠান, সংঘ সবই মানব সমাজের অন্তর্ভুক্ত এবং ব্যক্তির দৈনন্দিন জীবনের আচার আচরণ, কাজকর্ম তথা মানসিক বিকাশ, এই সমস্ত কিছু এসবের মাধ্যমে পরিচালিত হয়। সমাজ বলতে আমরা বুঝি কোনো উদ্দেশ্য সাধনে নিমিত্ত বহু লোকের সংঘবদ্ধ বসবাস। সমাজ হলো এমন এক বৃহত্তর সংঘবদ্ধ মানব গোষ্ঠী, যে মানব গোষ্ঠী মোটামুটি একটি স্থায়ী সংগঠনের মাধ্যমে কোনো সাধারণ উদ্দেশ্য বা স্বার্থ সাধনের নিমিত্ত পারস্পরিক সহযোগিতা ও সম্পর্কের ভিত্তিতে সমবেতভাবে কাজ করে। এক কথায় আমরা সমাজ বলতে বুঝি আমাদের মানসিক অবস্থাকে। আমাদের মানসিক অবস্থা ভালো হলে সমাজ ভালো থাকবে, আবার মন্দ হলে সমাজ আর ভালো থাকবে না। ভারতের সাফল্যের ইতিহাসকে যে বিষয়টি কলঙ্কিত করে তা হলো নিয়ত অপুষ্টি। 1/3 মানুষ যারা গ্রামাঞ্চলে বাস করে তাদের সকলেই অপুষ্টিতে ভোগে। সবচেয়ে অপুষ্টিতে ভোগে সেই সমস্ত মানুষ বাজার থেকে যারা খাবার কিনে খায়। খাবার জোটে তখনই যখন তাদের হাতে শ্রমের মজুরিটুকু আসে। এই সমস্ত মানুষের অবস্থা খুবই জটিল। কখনো কাজ আছে, আবার কখনো কাজ নেই। খাবারের দাম নিত্য নতুন বেড়ে চলেছে, ফলে দেখা যায় অনেক সময় অনেক পরিবারে অন্ন জোটে না। আর বাসস্থান বলতে বোঝায় ছিটে বেড়া ঘরের মাথায় ত্রিপল চাপানো, অনেক ক্ষেত্রে দেখা যায় বাড়ির জমিটুকুও নিজের নয়। খাদ্য সুরক্ষার ক্ষেত্রে দুটি প্রধান বিষয় হলো প্রতিনিয়ত অতি দ্রুত নগরায়ণ ঘটে যাওয়াকে রোধ করা এবং খাদ্যের সমবন্টন ব্যবস্থা করা, যার ফলে ব্যক্তিত্ব সম্পন্ন ধনী ব্যক্তিরা যেমন যথেচ্ছভাবে খাদ্য অপচয় করা থেকে বিরত থাকবে, তেমন অন্যদিকে দরিদ্র ব্যক্তিরা তাদের সামর্থ্যের মধ্যে ন্যূনতম খাদ্যটুকু গ্রহণ করতে পারবে। ধনী ব্যক্তিকে খাদ্য বাসস্থানের বিষয়ে সংযমী, মিতব্যয়ী ও নৈতিক বোধসম্পন্ন হতে হবে। খাদ্য ও বাসস্থান আমাদের বেঁচে থাকার জন্য ন্যূনতমই যথেষ্ট। নীতিজ্ঞান সম্পন্ন মানুষ কখনোই যেন অনৈতিক কাজ না করে, এটাই আমাদের কাম্য। অনৈতিক কাজ না করলে সেই ব্যক্তি অবশ্যই সংযমী ও মিতব্যয়ী হবে। ব্যক্তি সংযমী ও মিতব্যয়ী হলে দরিদ্র মানুষেরা ন্যূনতম খাদ্য ও বাসস্থানটুকু পেতে পারে। খোলা আকাশের নিচে ক্ষুধার জ্বালা নিয়ে পড়ে থাকতে হয় না। এই বিশ্বজগৎ হঠাৎ করে কোনো একদিনে গঠিত হয়নি। লক্ষ লক্ষ বছরের অনেক পরিবর্তনের মধ্য দিয়ে জগতের বর্তমান অবস্থা এবং এই অবস্থারও পরিবর্তন ঘটছে। চেতন অচেতন জগতের প্রত্যেকটি বস্তু সরল অবস্থা থেকে জটিল অবস্থায় রূপান্তরিত হয়েছে। অসংখ্য জীব প্রজাতি হারিয়ে গেছে শুধু আমাদের দায়িত্ব জ্ঞানী আচরণের কারণে। কিন্তু আমরা কখনো বোঝার চেষ্টা করি না যে মানুষের অস্তিত্ব বিপন্ন হবে। পশু পক্ষী বিপন্ন হলে পশু পক্ষীর অস্তিত্ব বিপন্ন হয়, বৃক্ষ তরুলতা বিপন্ন হলে, আর বৃক্ষ তরুলতা বিপন্ন হয় পৃথিবীর জল, মাটি, বায়ুস্তর, উষ্ণতা ঠিকমতো না থাকলে। এই জড় ও অজড়ের ভারসাম্য ব্যবস্থা বা পারস্পরিক নির্ভরতাকে বলা হয় ইকোলজি। পরিবেশ সচেতন মানুষ মাত্রই বুঝতে সক্ষম যে পরিবেশের উপর কিছু অসংযমী মানুষের প্রয়োজন অতিরিক্ত যথেচ্ছ ও আত্মকেন্দ্রিক ব্যবহারের ফলে পরিবেশ প্রতিনিয়ত পরিবর্তিত হচ্ছে। সেই জন্য পরিবেশবাদীরা বোঝাবার চেষ্টা করছেন যে শুধুমাত্র দূরদর্শী স্বার্থপর মানুষের বাসভূমি এই পৃথিবী, তা কিন্তু নয়। এই পৃথিবী হলো ধনী, গরিব, শিশু, বৃদ্ধ, স্ত্রী, পুরুষ নির্বিশেষে সকলে। পরিবেশবাদীরা যতই বোঝাবার চেষ্টা করুন না কেন যে এই পৃথিবী হলো ধনী ও দরিদ্রের, কিন্তু বাস্তব চিত্র তা নয়। বাস্তব চিত্র একেবারে আলাদা। বর্তমান সমাজে এখনো পর্যন্ত ধনী ও দরিদ্রের মধ্যে চরমভাবে বৈষম্য বর্তমান। বিপন্ন বাস্তবতার সবচেয়ে বড় কারণ হলো মানুষের নৈতিক দায়িত্বের অভাব। যদি বিত্তবান ব্যক্তিরা দায়িত্বের সঙ্গে নিজেদের চাহিদাকে ন্যূনতম প্রয়োজনের চৌহদ্দিতে আবদ্ধ রেখে সরকার পক্ষের সঙ্গে একত্রিত হয়ে উন্নয়নে সাহায্য করে, তাহলে দুর্ভিক্ষ পীড়িত মানুষেরা উপকৃত হতে পারে। শুধুমাত্র সরকারি উদ্যোগে কোনো ভালো কাজ হয় না, কারণ অনেক ক্ষেত্রে সরকারি কোষাগারে অর্থ আসে ধনী ব্যক্তিদের কাছ থেকে এবং শ্রম আসে দরিদ্রের থেকে। ধনী অর্থাৎ বিত্তবানদের সঙ্গে না নিয়ে কাজ করলে সরকারের কোষাগার শূন্য হবে। সুতরাং পরোক্ষভাবে সরকার একাকী দরিদ্র ব্যক্তিদের সাহায্য করার ক্ষেত্রে সফল হবে না। তাই ধনী ব্যক্তিরা তাদের বিলাসিতা কমিয়ে খাদ্য সুরক্ষার কথা মাথায় রেখে বিভিন্ন স্থানে প্রয়োজন অতিরিক্ত বাসস্থান না তৈরি করে, অর্থাৎ মুক্ত জমির পরিমাণ না কমিয়ে যতটুকু একান্ত প্রয়োজন তাই নিয়ে সন্তুষ্ট থেকে সরকার পক্ষের সহিত একসাথে কাজ করে, তাহলে দরিদ্র ব্যক্তিবর্গের সার্বিক উন্নতি হতে পারে এবং খাদ্য সুরক্ষার বিষয়টি নিশ্চিত থাকে। এই পৃথিবীতে সকল মানুষেরই খেয়ে পড়ে সমানভাবে বেঁচে থাকার অধিকার আছে। সাম্য প্রতিষ্ঠা হলো গণতান্ত্রিক সমাজবাদের একটি উল্লেখযোগ্য লক্ষ্য। সাম্য শব্দটির শব্দগত বা বর্ণনামূলক অর্থ হলো সমতা বা তুল্যতা। নমর্থক দিকের পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে সাম্যের অর্থ হলো মানুষে মানুষে সমস্ত প্রকার বৈষম্যের অবসান, আর সদর্থক দিকের পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে সাম্য হলো মানুষের মধ্যে সমান অধিকার প্রতিষ্ঠা। কিন্তু সেই সমান অধিকার সকলে ভোগ করার সুযোগ পায় না। এক্ষেত্রে যদি কোনো বৈষম্যের সৃষ্টি হয়, তাহলে ন্যায় বিচারের মাধ্যমে যার যা প্রাপ্য তাকে তাই প্রদান করতে হবে। সকলের প্রতি সাম্যতা বজায় রাখতে হবে। ন্যায় বিচার এমন হবে না যার জন্য কোনো স্বাধীনতা খর্ব হয়। এই প্রসঙ্গে বুদ্ধদেবের অহিংসা খুবই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ। অহিংসা বলতে কেবল হিংসা না করাকে বোঝায় না, নিজের স্বার্থ সম্বন্ধে উদাসীন থেকে বিশ্ববাসীর কল্যাণ চিন্তা করা, সকলের প্রতি প্রীতিবোধ প্রণোদিত আচরণ করায় অহিংসার প্রকৃত তাৎপর্য। মানুষের ভালো মন্দ সমস্ত কিছু নির্ভর করছে সমাজে বিদ্যমান ব্যক্তিদের উপর। বিদ্যমান ব্যক্তিরা যদি প্রাকৃতিক সম্পদ এবং অন্যান্য সম্পদ একটু চিন্তা ভাবনা করে খরচ করেন, তাদের বিলাসিতার দিকটির প্রতি যদি একটু নজর রাখেন, সমাজে পিছিয়ে পড়া দরিদ্র মানুষের প্রতি যদি সহনশীলতা ভাবটি রাখেন, তাহলে দরিদ্র মানুষেরা না খেতে পাওয়ার থেকে অন্ততপক্ষে ন্যূনতম খাদ্যটুকু পেয়ে বেঁচে থাকতে পারে এবং তার ফলে সমাজ ও প্রকৃত উন্নয়নের অভিমুখে গতিপ্রাপ্ত হতে পারে। সুতরাং মানুষকে খাদ্য, বাসস্থান, বিলাসিতা সবকিছুতেই সংযমী ও মিতব্যয়ী হতে হবে এবং একান্ত প্রয়োজনীয় জিনিস গ্রহণ করতে হবে। তাহলে হয়তো খাদ্য সুরক্ষা ও নগরায়ণ সাম্যাবস্থা সম্ভব হতে পারে। বর্তমানে অসংখ্য মানুষ তাদের দৈহিক ও মানসিক স্বাস্থ্যের জন্য প্রয়োজনীয় ক্যালোরি, ভিটামিন ও খনিজ দ্রব্য সংগ্রহ করতে পারে না। মানুষ নানা রকম অপুষ্টিজনিত রোগে আক্রান্ত, ন্যূনতম খাবারটুকু না পেয়ে পুষ্টির অভাবে বেশিরভাগ শিশু অতি অল্প বয়সে মারা যায়। বর্তমান বা ভবিষ্যতে এই অবস্থার জন্য দায়ী আমাদের সমাজে কিছু স্বার্থপর মানুষ, যারা অতিরিক্ত বিলাসিতায় মত্ত। অশিক্ষিত এবং দরিদ্র মানুষের কথা না ধরলে বাকি থাকে শিক্ষিত ধনী সমাজ, যাদের মধ্যে আধ্যাত্মিক চেতনাবোধ ও নীতিবোধ নেই। প্রয়োজন অসংযত, অতিরিক্ত বিলাসিতায় মত্ত। খাদ্য তাদের কাছে ক্ষুধা নয়, বিলাসিতা। বাসস্থান আশ্রয়ের জন্য নয়, আরামের জন্য। এই ধরনের ব্যক্তির সংখ্যা যত বেশি হবে, ততই খাদ্য সুরক্ষা দুর্বল হবে। মানুষের প্রয়োজনের সীমা নেই, প্রভুত্ব করতে চায় সমগ্র জগতের উপর। পরিবেশের সমূহ ক্ষতি যার অনিবার্য পরিণতি। মানুষের আত্মঘাতী হওয়ার সম্ভাবনা দেখা দেয়। আত্মঘাত রোধ করতে হলে মানুষকে ঠিক করতে হবে কোনটি প্রয়োজন আর কোনটি একান্ত প্রয়োজন। এই একান্ত প্রয়োজনীয় বিষয় নিয়ে মানুষকে সন্তুষ্ট থাকতে হবে। খাদ্য সুরক্ষা ও নগরায়ণ সাম্যাবস্থা, এই ব্যবস্থাটি পুরোপুরি নির্ভর করছে ধনী বা বিত্তবান ব্যক্তিদের উপর। গরিব মানুষ যারা আছে, তাদের তো দুবেলা দুমুঠো খাবার ভালো করে জোটে না। খাদ্য তাদের কাছে ক্ষুধা মেটানো, আর বাসস্থান বলতে মাথা গোজার ঠাঁই। কিন্তু ধনী ব্যক্তিরা একের পর এক বাড়ি তৈরি করে যায় জমি নষ্ট করে। থাকার লোক নেই কিন্তু বাড়ি চায়। কর্মক্ষেত্র এক স্থানে, সেখানে বাড়ি। কলকাতা বেড়াতে যাবে, সেখানে বাড়ি। গ্রামে পৈতৃক বাড়ি। থাকার লোক নেই তো কি হয়েছে, বাড়ি কিনে রাখলে পরে বেশি দামে বিক্রিত করা যাবে। ধনীর দুলাল বিনা প্রয়োজনে পরিবেশে বায়ু দূষণ, শব্দ দূষণ মাত্রা বাড়িয়ে দেয় সকালে বিকালে মোটর বাইকে দৌড়াতে। ধনীর দুলাল শীতের সময় কোথায় থাকবে, গ্রীষ্মে কোথায় থাকবে, এই চিন্তায় বিনা প্রয়োজনে বিভিন্ন স্থানে বাড়ি নির্মাণ করে জমি নষ্ট করে। হাতে টাকা থাকলেই হতো, অর্থই অনর্থের মূল। এই যদি মানুষের প্রবণতা হয়, তাহলে কিছুদিন পর মানুষকে না খেয়ে মরতে হবে। সুতরাং নীতিবোধ, আধ্যাত্মিক চেতনাবোধ সবই শিক্ষিত ধনী সমাজের মধ্যে থাকা আবশ্যিক। আমরা মানুষেরা অন্যান্য ইতর প্রাণী থেকে উন্নত। ইতর প্রাণীদের জীবনধারা নিয়ন্ত্রিত হয় জৈবিক চাহিদার ভিত্তিতে, কিন্তু মানুষ বিচারবদ্ধ সম্পন্ন জীব। তার মধ্যে আছে আধ্যাত্মিক চেতনাবোধ, নীতিবোধ। অপরের সুখ দুঃখ, ইচ্ছা, অনুভূতি অনুভব করার মতো আধ্যাত্মিক চেতনাবোধ থাকার সম্ভাবনা তার মধ্যে আছে। কোন কাজটি ভালো, কোনটি মন্দ, উচিত অনুচিত, এই নীতিবোধও তার আছে। সুতরাং একজন আধ্যাত্মিক চেতনাবোধ ও নীতিবোধ সম্পন্ন মানুষের ন্যূনতম খাদ্য ব্যবস্থা ও বাসস্থানে তার প্রয়োজন মিটে যাওয়া উচিত। ন্যূনতম বলতে বোঝায় একজন মানুষের জীবন ধারণের জন্য যতটুকু প্রয়োজন ততটুকুকেই, বিলাসিতার জন্য প্রয়োজন অতিরিক্তকে নয়। ন্যূনতম চেতনায় প্রতিষ্ঠিত ব্যক্তিকেই সৎ ব্যক্তি বলা হয়। মানুষকে সৎ হতে হবে, সংযমী হতে হবে, প্রয়োজনকে সংযত রাখতে হবে, তবেই উন্নয়নের ধারণার বাস্তবায়ন ঘটানো যাবে। ধন্যবাদ।
অন্ন, বস্ত্র, বাসস্থান, জীবনকে যাপনের জন্য যে তিনটি অনস্বীকার্য, যেটা আমরা সকলে জেনেই কুমারশূন্য হয়ে থাকি, সেই বিষয়ে প্রাণদার আলোচনা আমাদের সামনে আমাদেরকে আবার যে এটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ, কতটা গুরুত্ব সেটা আবার পুনর্জাগরণ ঘটল। এছাড়া সামাজিক দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি নিয়ে দাদা যে সকল কথাগুলো বললেন, এবং এটা উনিও ওনার কর্মজীবনের সঙ্গে যে বেশ অনুসরণ করেন, তার একটা উদাহরণ বলছি। প্রাণদার বলার কথা ছিল 27 তারিখ, আমি ওনাকে বললাম যে 27 তারিখ আমাদের ডিপার্টমেন্টে প্র্যাকটিক্যাল পরীক্ষা, অন্য কেউ হয়তো বিষয়টা চালিয়ে নিতে পারবেন, ল্যাপটপ কিছু কানেকশন করা, সাউন্ড সিস্টেম রেডি করা, কিন্তু 28 তারিখ হলে খুব ভালো হয়, ওই দিনে দুজনের আছে, তাহলে আপনাকেও সঙ্গে দিয়ে দিলাম। সঙ্গে সঙ্গে এত অনুভূতি করুন, সেটা ফিল করলেন এবং একমত বললেন অবশ্যই তুমি তাই করো। আর যে কোনো কাজের প্রতি আমরা দেখেছি যে নাম শুধু প্রাণ নয়, কর্মের যেটা দায়িত্ব নেন সেটা সুষ্ঠুভাবে সম্পন্ন করার জন্য নিবেদিত প্রাণ। এখান থেকে আমরা অনেক সময় অনেক দাদারা বলেন যে কাজ না পাওয়াটা ইনএফিসিয়েন্সি নয়, ল্যাক অফ ডেডিকেশন। খুব ভালো লাগলো আমাদের সকলের, দাদাকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ। এখন আমাদের সামনে আলোচনায় অংশগ্রহণ করবেন আমাদের অধ্যক্ষ মহাশয়। আমি স্যারকে আহ্বান করছি আসার জন্য।
My respected colleagues and dear students, in fact I am sandwiched between two P's, Pran and Pradipto. In real life, as you know, that the researcher in me is sandwiched between two functionaries, the administrator and the teacher. Classroom teaching and the load of administration is almost strangling the aspirations for research in me. Anyway, if I get any call from any platform for sharing my latest thoughts with them, I try to devote myself to a particular field and read something attentively and apply my own thoughts and interpret it. This is what we as teachers of literature do. In January 2017, I got a call from Alia University, Kolkata. They were holding an international seminar on nature, art, etc. in Shakespeare. I was asked to present a paper. Initially I declined, but the call came from Amjadda, who is the head of the department, beloved senior of mine, and I could not, I had to accept. And then I prepared for the presentation, but I was not having the performance there because I couldn't find time as such to organize my thoughts. But this time when I was asked to make a presentation before my teachers and students, then I could find some time to organize the thoughts, and I think that what I am going to present, I don't know whether it is a new interpretation of the procreational sonnets of Shakespeare or not, but at least it will have some relevance to our day-to-day life. Now the topic of the presentation is resolving nature-nurture dichotomy with reference to the procreational sonnets of Shakespeare. Those who are not students of English literature, for them let me tell you that Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets, and of these 1 to 17, these are called sonnets, procreational sonnets, because the thing is Shakespeare is imploring, requesting, asking his friend to get married and beget offspring, so that he can, by doing that, reproduce an image the friend who are similarly beautiful, and that image will, in his offspring, his own image will be eternal. This is the theme, and here I'm just approaching the theme of these sonnets from a different angle, how these sonnets, if we interpret them, read them very carefully, attentively, how they can be interpreted from the angle of how the nature-nurture dichotomy stands resolved, or Shakespeare attempts to resolve them in these sonnets. First of all, let us quickly glance through the uses of the term nature and nurture. Nature has various meanings. Edgar C. Knowlton, one great scholar on Shakespeare, has written a wonderful essay on the various uses of the term nature in Shakespeare, and of the 9 or 10 major meanings, what I want to concentrate, because some meanings they have very subtle differences which need not be discussed here. One is nature, means creator, as you find in Shakespeare's Sonnet 20. A woman's face with nature's own hand painted, their nature is the creator. Then nature is the changing agent for causing change, causer of changes, and every pair, that famous line from Sonnet 18, every pair from pair sometimes decline, by chance or nature's changing course untrimmed. Then nature may mean demands of the physical body, like hunger, like sleep, etc. And one sleeplessness is a perturbation in nature, as you find in Macbeth. Nature is feelings governing human relations. The famous line in Shakespeare's Macbeth, Lady Macbeth saying, when Lady Macbeth has deserted his wife and his children, Lady Macbeth says, he wants the natural touch, that is the feelings, the softer feelings that govern human relations. And then nature, this is the most important meaning that we will concentrate on. Nature is character with certain degree of fixity. Character, what we call personal character, trait, human nature, etc. Yet do I fear thy nature, it is too full of the milk of human kindness. When Lady Macbeth says about Macbeth, she refers to this particular aspect of nature. So nature has many meanings, and nurture, I just want to first concentrate on the terms, because otherwise what I am going to deliver that may be stand uncommunicated to you. Nurture. Nurture is, as you know, nurture is related to rearing up, parenting, what we call, or socialization. This is what is important here is that nurture implies the presence of any external agency, nurturing, and then it is dependent on non-biological factors, nurturing, and nurture, it is not implanted, genetically programmed, but it is actually acquired from outside. This is the basic difference between nature and nurture. And then nurture, if we further classify it, we come to two terms, culture and art. They are related to nurture because when you give a sophisticating touch to human nature, then you move from the domain of nature to the domain of culture, because culture sophisticates, culture refines human nature, we know that. And what is reformative function, culture in its reformative function, in creative function we call it art. So art is again a sophisticating agent, something that adds to, something that creates, replicates, reproduces, and at the same time it is culture and art, if we not very strictly, but very generally we try to differentiate. One is a refining factor and the other is a replicating factor. Now the binary of nature nurture, this is very important, especially to students of English literature. In The Tempest, Prospero says about Paul Caliban, a devil, a born devil on whose nature nurture cannot speak. So nurture cannot put any impression on the nature of Caliban. So certain natures are incorrigible, certain natures are unimprovable. This is what is suggested here. So if nurture can sophisticate, I'll come to the problematics of it. If nurture sophisticates, how can Caliban's nature remain unsophisticated or unrefined? Then Richard Mulcaster, I'm referring to Mulcaster, who was a 16th century educationist. He makes one comment about this. Nature makes a boy toward, nurture sees him forward. So toward, there is a distinction between toward or some differences implied here. Toward something in a movement, movement in one direction, but forward movement which is associated with progress, frontal direction, not backward. So movement can be toward, may also mean backward movement, but forward always implies a movement ahead. So nature makes a boy toward, suggesting that we have come here. If life is a journey, we have been thrust into this world by nature, but it is nurture that makes the boy. In those days, educationists were concerned with the education of boys only. That's why girls are here, let us say, omitted. But boy or girl, every child is made forward by nurture. So this was the idea. Now this phrase, nature, nurture, this dichotomous relationship, it was from the very beginning, it was poised, let us say, in a way which implies antithesis, but it was not always treated antithetically, it was not always treated antonymously. Now how they are to be treated, their complementary status will be clear if we look at the fact that both nature and nurture carry both an affirmative nuance and a negative import. That is, they carry both positive and negative meaning. For example, nature, by nature we mean what is unspoiled, uncontaminated. This is positive. And the other side of it is nature means also what is raw, what is unrefined, what is gross. So nature, on the other side, the positive meaning of it is nature is something which is uncontaminated or unspoiled, undamaged by human intervention. And the other side is nature is raw, nature is rough. And the same is true about nurture also. Nurture is what is refined. This is the positive meaning of nurture. But nurture also carries a pejorative nuance. Nurture means something that is nurtured, that is not natural, that is lacking in genuineness, that is lacking in naturalness. This is the pejorative nuance carried by nurture. So both are complementary in the sense that what is unspoiled, it is unspoiled, but at the same time, the unspoiled, the moment you try, it is unspoiled but raw. But the moment you try to sophisticate it, refine it, it becomes, let us say, an improved entity, no doubt, but at the same time it loses its naturalness. This is how they are complementary. Human nature, the Elizabethans, what was their attitude to human nature? I told you that nature, the last meaning of nature is what? Concentrating on Elizabethan. So they use nature most often in the sense of human nature, and human nature, their attitude to human nature was ambivalent. This was also due to the Elizabethan ethos. It was believed that man's position is between the gods, in the great chain of being between the gods and the beasts. So man has his own share of animality as well as his own share of divinity. So these two ideas are articulated by Shakespeare in his play. For example, in Hamlet, Shakespeare talks about what a piece of work is man. There is a very finest tribute to human potentials, and there Shakespeare also appreciates the in apprehension how like a god, man in apprehension, in understanding is divine, because man as a brain, it bears the reasoning aspect, the imagination, the analytical faculty that is given to the angels only. And at the same time, man has his bestiality, and this aspect is voiced by Portia in Merchant of Venice. When Portia talks about her German suitor, Portia says that when he is best, the German suitor who wants to marry Portia, but he is a worthless suitor. Portia says when he is best, he is little worse than a man. He is less than a man, and when he is worse, he is better than a beast. So there, the man's the lowness of man is commented upon by Portia. Now, human nature, we come to the question of, I told you that I will concentrate, interpret Shakespeare's sonnets, the procreational sonnets, from the angle of nature-nurture dichotomy, but all this is actually some kind of a foundation or some kind of a basis on which my analysis is to be founded. Now, human nature, it is like the glass to be handled with care, or maybe it is metaphorically speaking, it is there are various approaches to human nature. For example, human nature is described by Hobbes in Leviathan as brutish, and therefore if it is brutish, it is to be regulated, it is to be disciplined. So Hobbes' prescription recommendation is human nature. Man is basically a brute, and therefore it is to be disciplined. The brutish sinful instincts are to be disciplined. And Rousseau goes to the other pole. Now Shakespeare 16th century, Rousseau 18th century. Rousseau goes to the other pole, and Rousseau says that human nature is all very innocent, and it is our duty to protect human nature. And we come to the late 18th century, 17th century Locke, I think it is 18th century, Locke, view on human mind is tabula rasa, a clean slate, and that means it is impressionable, it can be impressed upon. So whether you write a wrong word or a right word, that defines your own nature. So the basic point that I want to arrive at, the point that I am driving at, is that human nature, whether it is raw, human nature, whether it is refined or innocent, or human nature is neither raw nor innocent, it is just as a clean slate. And the experiences, from our experiences, we can improve our mind, or we can degrade ourselves, that is still undecided. Now, problematizing the concepts can be problematized as well. For example, the primitivists, they are asking us to restore the pre-civilized state. That is, they are supporting the raw human nature, as if civilization is responsible for the degradation of man. Brand was just talking about the degraded state of present civilization, how we have become so selfish, and we are therefore in those days, Sheshet said in Bhayankar, a time will come when there will be acute food crisis. Now, restore the pre-civilized state, and A.O. Lovejoy has said that primitivism is nothing but a discontent of the civilized with civilization. That is, civilization cannot, Shakespeare in As You Like It, Duke talking about, Forest of Arden, the uses of adversity, etc. Those who are students of English literature, they know. But the problem here is that the cycle of history is irreversible. society has progressed. Therefore, even if you desire, you cannot fall back on the primitive primordial state. It is impossible. And not only that, it is not even always desirable. For example, touchstoning, as you like it has been described as nature's natural. Lacking in as if touchstone is a smart, witty speaker, but nature's natural, that is someone whose nature has not been sophisticated or improved upon. Then nature or culture similarly can, the notion of culture can be problematized as well. Culture regulates on the one hand what is raw in us and it nurtures what is noble in us, no doubt, but culture has also its own limitations. For example, nurture culture, what we call giving a sophisticated touch to our innate nature. Miranda in The Tempest, her sweetness originates from her superior culture, no doubt, but the same culture fails, inefficacious it is in sophisticating the nature of Caliban. So culture has its own limitations, and culture also, sometimes culture is a marginalizing force. For example, nature, Edmund in King Lear is a naturally born child, but Edmund is treated as a bastard, an illegitimate child, and bastardy or illegitimacy, all this is actually, it has nothing to do with nature, it has something to do with our culture, the environment, the code of conduct, the norm that we set for ourselves in our society. Now the modern theory, whether we will support nature or we should go back to the culture, that is whether the nature will remain untouched without human intervention, it should be allowed to be as it is, or it should be, let's say, improved upon. There are lots of debates. I am not a scientist, or nor do I have that much of exposure to the science journals, but as much as I could collect information, we find that the dichotomy actually boils down to a dichotomy between heritability and acquirability, gene and environment, and gene expression theory, that is a theory that is very popular these days among the biologists, who are claiming that genes are programmed to take their cue from factors beyond the organism. So if they take their cue from within the organism, that is, if it is programmed within the chromosome itself, then it is not actually a gene expression theory, but genes are programmed to take their cue from factors beyond the organism. So beyond the organism means you are moving from the domain of, let's say, heredity to the domain of environment. One Matt Ridley in 2003 in Nature via Nurture says no longer it is nature, is it nature versus nurture, but nature via nurture. So nature is what we should, let's say, try to reach at, but via nurture, not nature versus nurture. And there is another school of, let's say, research, this is called epigenetics or extragenetic factors. They are talking about heredity and environment. One cannot really be separated from the other. In this connection, we may refer to one metaphor used by Richard C. Leontief in 1974. He was talking about bricklaying. Suppose that we are, let's say, erecting one wall. Part of it, the bricks are laid by one mason A and another mason. They two are working together. If both of them are laying bricks, then you can just quantify it or count it and say whose share, say 60-40 or 50-50, etc. The share can be easily calculated. But if one is laying the bricks and another is preparing the mortar which is required for laying the bricks, then you cannot quantify, you cannot say whose share it is, whether it is 50%, 50% or 50-60, you cannot count it. So the point is, modern theories claim that gene and environment, they are not to be separated, or rather it is impossible for us to separate the role of one from the other. Now nature, nurture and art, how it is related to art, and this is why I am coming to Shakespeare actually. Nature, nurture to art, when we come, nature, nurture to art, there is a slight departure from the nurture or culture. They are close related, but when you come to art, we are actually moving from reformation to the state of issue of reduplication or replication. Now art reduplicates, or it can reproduce what is already there in nature, and this reproduction, why should we reproduce it? There are many theories. One is art can mend the flaws of nature. That is, Shakespeare in 127 talks about pairing the fowl with art's borrowed face. Pairing the fowl, what is raw in nature, that can be made fair. Suppose my nose is blunt, but you draw a portrait of mine and there my nose is painted very sharp. So this is how art can improve or mend the defects of nature. This is one aspect, and art can also add value to to an object. But the charges against art, that art is deficient in true value. This is a very well-known issue to the students of literature. I need not dwell upon that. Shakespeare in Sonnet 767 talks about, why should false painting imitate his cheek and still dead seeming of his living hue. So something, a human lustre is living hue, and the rules that you use in decorating a portrait, or rather in apply to the cheek of a portrait, that rule is a cosmetic, something let us say artificial. And Shakespeare, very interesting, in 68 talks about golden traces of the day. In those days, wigs should be worn by people who are, let us say, belong to the elite society, and the wigs, they were often prepared with the hair cut from the head of the dead person. But this is false. So it is lacking in deficiency. Now nature, this is the main point. Nature, what are the offices of nature, or offices and functions of nature? One is propagation, we all know, development and preservation of life, the threefold function. Now how nature, culture or art, how is it related to this drive of nature for propagation, development and preservation, and what Shakespeare's sonnets have to do in this regard. Shakespeare's sonnets 100 to 17, these are called procreational sonnets, and here my contention is that Shakespeare tries to strike a balance between nature and nurture or art in these sonnets. They, nature, nurture, they are sometimes poised antithetically, dichotomous, binary, but Shakespeare tries to resolve the dichotomy in these sonnets. How? The basic thing is, the theme of the sonnets is Shakespeare appeals to his friend to get married and also beget a progeny, so that the image of his friend, Shakespeare's sonnets 100 to 126, they are addressed to one beautiful friend, very good looking. So good looking that Shakespeare doesn't want his beauty to be to lose even the slightest of his lustre. Shakespeare makes this appeal. Now it is not that Shakespeare was the first to make this appeal, it was an Elizabethan commonplace. Shakespeare, Marlowe or other contemporary poets had used this theme of getting married, and begetting children. Now how is it related to, these sonnets are related to the, let's say, nature-nurture dichotomy. First of all, let us take into consideration sex and procreation. Sex is, sexual indulgence is, it is a natural impulse. So it is driven, it is a drive of nature. Sex, now attitude to sex in Elizabethan time, that was also an ambiguous attitude. Shakespeare in Sonnet 129, for example, describes sex as the expense of spirit in a waste of shame. There is a negative attitude. Sex is here, let's say, something which should not there be. It links man more with the beast than with the angels. So this is the negative attitude. But the Elizabethans in general, they recommended the practice of sex within the wedlock. So sex, marriage, sanctified sex. So marriage is considered a sacrament. And a sacrament, as you know, in Christianity, by sacrament we mean that performing the rite, you are entitled to divine grace. So if marriage is a sacrament, by marrying somebody, by getting wedded to somebody, you are entitled to divine grace. This is the interpretation. So marriage sanctifies sex, which is otherwise considered the other name of lust. Sexuality within wedlock, this is nature in harmony with culture. Sexuality, why culture? Because marriage, nature doesn't think of any marriage or any sacrament, no wedding rite, etc. But sexuality within wedlock is nature in harmony with culture. That dichotomy stands resolved, and Shakespeare insists on this. Begetting an offspring is, now by begetting an offspring, what are you doing? You are appropriating the nature's role. I told you that nature, the first meaning of nature that I referred to, nature as creator. By begetting a child, you are appropriating the role of nature as creator. Because you are also creating something, and you are creating and replicating your own image. In this connection, we may refer to the words of Angelo, when Angelo is actually criticizing Claudio. Claudio is a fornicator. He has impregnated a girl without getting married, before getting married to that girl. And Claudio, Angelo is criticizing Claudio, and Angelo says that Claudio has shown impudence to coin heaven's image in a stand for thee. So the metaphor says that a child is just like an image of God, but this outside, since it is not a child born within our wedlock, therefore it stands for thee. Now, celibacy, what is the Elizabethan attitude to celibacy? The other side of sexuality is celibacy. The biblical injunction is go and multiply, that is, do not practice family planning. Celibacy is against natural law of propagation and preservation. Yet, celibacy was idealized even in Shakespeare's time. I told you in Shakespeare's time, the attitude to sex and is rather ambivalent. Sometimes we find that sex is sinful, sometimes sex is recommended within wedlock, sometimes celibacy is idealized. Now, it is idealized, you may remember those lines from A Midsummer Night's Dream where Theseus is talking about Hermia, and Theseus says that if Hermia becomes a nun, then it is a maiden pilgrimage thrice blessed. Maiden pilgrimage thrice blessed. So it is he appreciates this decision of Hermia to remain single. But then there was, since the 11th century, if you become a churchman, join the group of the clergymen, then you are not allowed. In those days, it was generally believed that if you are a clergyman, then you will not get married and you will practice celibacy. But that was actually inspiring, immorality among the clergymen, because they were indulging in sex without getting married. And in order to stop that rising, in order to arrest the rise of adultery among the clergymen, marriage was recommended, and therefore in the same play, immediately in the same speech of Theseus about Hermia, Theseus first says that maiden pilgrimage is thrice blessed, but then Theseus said that but earthlier happy is the road distilled than that which withering on the virgin thorn grows, lives and dies in single blessedness. So getting married is better than single blessedness, this decision. Now, There are now, why marriage was recommended? There are biblical references. Those who were earlier espousing celibacy, they are to be answered, and the biblical passages are quoted. The passages from Corinthians and Timothy. These are the passages quoted. Now, what about the sacrament of marriage? Practicing sex within wedlock, begetting children within wedlock, not outside the wedlock. How the sacrament is to be performed, the culture, the conditions imposed on nature, these actually are related to culture. What role culture, why marriage is still an institution that we all favor, because it is associated with, it has nothing to do with nature, but it is associated with culture. How? Now, to be fruitful, the husband and wife, they are to get married, but to be fruitful, that is not sex for the sake of sex, but to be fruitful. This is the, let's say, marriage sacrament implies this. So, one husband and wife, they become one flesh, mutual joy, mutual support for the purpose of procreation of children. This is part of culture. Then, no same-sex marriage. So, what type of marriage, what kind of sex you will have, the societal intervention, this is actually part of culture. Then bond lasting till death. Bond lasting till death, that means here again we find culture, societal intervention, some restriction is imposed to arrest or to stop promiscuity. Promiscuity is to be stopped. So this is actually from the cultural aspect of marriage, and to be faithful to each other. So human nature, we do not have only sexual impulse, but man is basically, as biologists often say, basically we prefer polygamous relationship, but that is to be restricted. That is why to be faithful to each other. This again is the cultural aspect of it. Now Shakespeare in his sonnets, I told you he referred to the sonnets 1 to 17. This is where Shakespeare urges upon his friend to get married and to replicate his own image within wedlock. Mind you, friend is implored not to break the rhythm of nature. If he is committed to celibacy, the natural rhythm will be broken, and not to break the rhythm of nature. What are the arguments? In Sonnet 1, Shakespeare talks about not to cause famine where abundance lies. He has the potential for begetting many children, but he is causing famine here. So this is not to be done. This is exhortation. Then not to make waste by niggarding, wasting his potential by hoarding it. He is actually simply, if you hoard something which need not be hoarded, then you are wasting your potential. Then another argument that he makes is Sonnet 4 is nature's largest is nature's, whatever nature has given us, that is a loan to us. It is actually lent to us, it will be taken back. So don't think that if you do not use it, it will be with you forever. So again, another way of very trickily inducing the friend to break his decision of being a celibate. And celibacy is narcissistic. This is what he says in, it is some kind of suicidal attempt. It is Sonnet 9 and Sonnet 11 he said, if all were minded so, the lions should see, and there three score, I'm sorry, there is a misspelling here, 3 here would make the world away. Within 60 years, the human race will be extinct if everyone is determined to be celibate. These are the arguments. Now, procreational art, it is projected as by Shakespeare in the sonnets as a better art, and herein, this is the main point that I am going to make here in my reading of the Shakespearean sonnets. Procreational art is recommended art because the friend will appropriate the role of a creator. He will create an image. As an artist writes a poem, he will create something. Husbandry in honor. This is husbandry in honor. This is the phrase that occurs in 13, and more blessed than barren line. So Shakespeare, I will come to barren line. Shakespeare, after 18, Shakespeare is changing his argument, and there he is banking more upon the power of his poems to immortalize the image of his friend than on the power of procreation. But before, up to 17, Shakespeare is very much insistent. He is asking his friend to why it is more blessed than barren line. For in sonnet 6 he says, it happies those, happy is used as verb, it makes happy those that pay the willing loan. So not that it is mutually blissful, and therefore it happies those that pay the willing loan. And another argument that Shakespeare uses here, that it is the offspring is much liker than painted counterfeit. If you have a portrait drawn, that portrait may be long lasting, but the portrait is after all a counterfeit, something artificial. But your own baby, created after your own image, that baby is likely to be much liker to you than your painted counterfeit. This argument. And non-procreational art can neither in inward work nor outward fare capture the friend's grace. So the friend's grace is something superb, something indescribable, ineffable literally. And this charm cannot be captured by a portrait maker, portrait painter, or a poet. The superb charm of the frame, the lively attraction of the frame, beauty, that can be captured only in this type of procreational art. Non-procreational art is here not useful. So that's why his argument in sonnet 16 is to give away yourself, keeps yourself still, and you must live drawn by your own sweet skill. In fact, I thought of using drawn by your own sweet skill as the title of this presentation. Originally I thought, but then I reconsidered that it will not be clear to everybody, at least not to not those who are not students of English literature. Drawn by your own sweet skill, the friend marrying and begetting offspring. This is his skill, but this is sweet skill. Why? Because here the nature and nurture dichotomy tension stands resolved. There is no disharmony between nature and nurture. If a child is created, an offspring is procreated by the friend. So drawn by your own sweet skill, this is what Shakespeare improved. But let us now, I'm just coming to the last lap of my presentation. Let us contextualize before we wrap up the discussion. 1 to 14, Shakespeare exhortation to the friend, get married and beget offspring. Then sonnet 15, Shakespeare changes, in that famous sonnet, Shakespeare changes the argument and he says, as he takes from you, I engraft you new. This is the first discordant note that Shakespeare strikes within the series of procreational sonnets in sonnet 15. As Shakespeare is here, let's say, not very undecided whether to further insist the friend on getting married or writing sonnets to immortalize the beauty of his friend. Then sonnet 16, he goes back to the earlier theme of procreation. He says, procreation is a mightier way of defeating time. If it is a question of immortalizing something, then procreation is a better art, mightier way. And then in 17, Shakespeare reiterates the point or reaffirms the point, and here in 17 Shakespeare says that, well, if I talk about your beauty, if I write 1,000 lines praising your beauty, but in the future nobody will believe you, because no one has seen your beauty. But if you leave an offspring behind you, then the child will be a living testimony to your beauty, and the child will satisfy in the most skeptical minded people who will be skeptical about your beauty, your grace. This is sonnet 17. And in 18, Shakespeare gives up the theme altogether, and Shakespeare here turns to poetic immortality, when in eternal lines to time thou growest, Shakespeare said. Now, we come to the conclusion. Shakespeare abandons, if nature and nurture dichotomy stands resolved in the procreational sonnets, why does Shakespeare abandon the theme of procreation altogether? You find that 19 onwards Shakespeare is no longer, let's say, using this motif. This is, there are many explanations. One is the nature of relationship between Shakespeare and his friend. You know, if you are a male friend and the relationship was homosexual in some reading, and the nature of relationship might have discouraged Shakespeare, or the reluctance of the friend to get married might have discouraged Shakespeare. So that's why the theme is abandoned. And what about the relationship? What kind of love-hate relationship that Shakespeare had with his friend? He was very possessive, but since he was a male, this is in sonnet 20, he says, but since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, that is, nature has supplied you, being a male, nature has supplied you with a male genital, and that's why this is for women's pleasure. Mine be thy love, that is, let me be satisfied with my love for you only. Thy loves use their treasure, but let women be happy with you, to have sex with you. So the kind of Shakespeare here feels the limitations of his relationship, but Shakespeare then, feeling this, that is either because of the complex nature of the relationship or because of his failure to persuade the friend, to urge upon the friend to get married and beget children, Shakespeare appropriates the role of creator himself. And we find in the next series of sonnets, which continue with various, let us say, variations in the theme up to 126. There Shakespeare says that propagation, this is nature's function. I told you, propagation, development and preservation. These are the three offices of nature. Shakespeare says, well, you will not get married. Let me assume the role of a creator. I am a writer, so I will create my verse. Sonnet 55, there you have verse where Shakespeare talks about, assumes the role of creator, and this is how nature's propagation law will be continue, development. Shakespeare says, let us be constant to each other. Constancy adds value, that is a development, and this theme is touched upon in sonnet 54 and 94. And preservation. Preservation is another law of nature. This is a poetic immortality that Shakespeare talks about in 116. But whatever propagation, whatever development, and whatever perpetuation or preservation Shakespeare talks about, later on, as a creator, be it the verse that he creates that will immortalize the brain, all this is actually, that this is symbolic, and therefore in the later sonnets the dichotomy between nature and art stands unresolved. Thank you.
The presentation reflects the inspiration, encouragement, love, culture, nature, prem, prerona, prakriti, samskriti. Really fantastic. In the previous presentation, Pramda charges us with ethical current, but now presentation of our sir recharge us with full talk time and 1 GB data free. My dear colleagues, আমরা একটু ভেবে নিই, স্যার শুধু এটা আমাদেরকে এই কালচারটা কালটিভেট করার জন্যই বলে থেমে থাকলেন না, তিনি নিজে অ্যাক্টিভলি পার্টিসিপেট করলেন এবং একটা এরকম সুন্দর প্রেজেন্টেশন, মনোরঞ্জিত করার মতো প্রেজেন্টেশন আমাদের সামনে দিলেন। এবং পাশাপাশি এটা ভাবি যে উনি কলেজের বিভিন্ন অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেটিভ কাজের লোড থাকা সত্ত্বেও নিয়মিত ক্লাস নিচ্ছেন, আবার তার মধ্যে আমাদের কাছেও আসছেন এরকম একটা প্রেজেন্টেশন দেওয়ার জন্য। খুব ভালো লাগলো আমাদের সমস্ত সহকর্মী স্যারেদের, দাদা দিদিদের পক্ষ থেকে স্যারকে আমরা অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। আর আজকের এই ফেজের আমাদের শেষ বক্তা, যিনি আমাদের সঙ্গে নলেজ শেয়ার করবেন, প্রদীপ্ত দাকে ইংলিশ বিভাগে আহ্বান করছি।
Very good afternoon to all of you. Respected Principal Sir, my dear colleagues, my dear students, and my friends. First of all, I would like to make two confessions that this is not at all a research paper. My second confession is that I'm not a Hemingway scholar either. But the topic that I have chosen to talk about, it is about, as you have seen or you can see from the slide, what is American about Ernest Hemingway. Now, when Suranjana requested me to talk on something, I was a bit perplexed and I was thinking about talking on an author who is very popular to most of you. And I suppose that Hemingway is such a popular novelist and he is read by students not only belonging to literature but also of other disciplines. So here it goes. This is how I have shaped my presentation. First, I will try to give a sort of introduction and a very short, brief research survey. And then I will try to rationalize the point of my discussion. Then I will try to give a brief overview of Ernest Hemingway. And finally, I will try to explore if there is any kind of quote-unquote Americanness in Hemingway or not. And finally, I'll try to sum up my findings. Ernest Miller Hemingway, he occupies the central position in American fiction as a representative American writer of the first half of the 20th century. In fact, most of his novels were published between 1926 to 1952. That is the phase. And if I say that he is not an American writer, that's why I've said that nothing can be more daring than to interrogate this basic premise that Hemingway was an American writer and, more importantly, as you know, a Nobel laureate from America. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature for that famous novel, The Old Man and the Sea. And nothing can be more preposterous than to challenge the Americanness present in his novels. And yet, my humble submission in this brief presentation would be to interrogate this very monolithic, traditionally accepted, universally accepted status of Hemingway being a true American writer. And after that, I would like to explore the possible issues of Americanness in his novels. Let me make it clear to all of you that I would restrict my discussion on his not on his short stories. These are some of the research survey of Hemingway. I have not included those research which includes the comprehensive ken of Hemingway's canon. For example, Nancy Comley and Robert Scholes They have examined Hemingway's gender roles, rereading the Hemingway's texts. Now let me tell you something about these gender roles. Hemingway is often considered to be a macro writer, M-A-C-H-O, macro, that means very masculine, that's why feminist critics, they have attacked Hemingway that he did not feel for the space for female in his novels. Going by the same logic, Carl Eby, his thesis is Hemingway's fetishism, psychoanalysis in the mirror of manhood. Similarly, Bernice Scott, in her research, she talks about the Hemingway women, how the women are being marginalized in his novels. Hemingway, as you know, he undertook extensive foreign tours, and regarding his foreign phases, mainly he toured in Italy, in Spain, he stayed in Italy, Spain and Paris, Austria. So regarding his phase in Spain, Conrad, that is Barnaby Conrad, he writes this book, wonderful book, Hemingway Spain. Similarly, regarding his Paris phase, there is a book called Hemingway's Paris by Robert Gerzhusek. Regarding the aesthetic art of Hemingway, there has been extensive research. For example, Baker's book, it's a wonderful book, one of the prominent Hemingway critic and scholar. Hemingway, the writer, as an artist. And Hemingway and the expatriate modernist movement was the topic of Carnot's thesis. Charles Whiting's thesis in Hemingway Goes to War, as you know, he participated in First World War, not as a soldier but as an ambulance driver. Some of the novels, earlier novels of Hemingway, they dwell on negativity, human disillusionment, and that becomes the subject of the research of Whit Williams, The Tragic Art of Ernest Hemingway. Regarding the narrative part of Hemingway's writings, Jerry Brenner has worked concealments in Hemingway's works. Now, if we consider this huge chunk of research that has been devoted to Hemingway through the years, we do not find a single scholar ever trying to explore the American aspects of his novels. This may be because, as I have written there, of the fact that scholars have taken it for granted that this is so self-evident that it needs no further exploration. It may also be because of the fact that Hemingway's novels were very popular. What happens is that when a novelist becomes very popular, the shroud of popularity eclipses many things behind it. That is a problem. But this is precisely what I would like to explore. My thesis and argument in this paper would be something like this. Out of the 6 novels written by Hemingway, the less important and less representative one, and it is supposed to be the weakest one also, To Have and Have Not, this alone is set in the United States of America, or to put it more precisely, in Florida. Key West was the place where he lived. The remaining novels are set either in Paris, or in Spain, or in Italy, or in Cuba. Thus, geographically speaking, Hemingway seems to be alienated from the United States of America. Hemingway's novels lack the semblance of a solid society, let alone an American society. If you go through his novels, you will never find an iota of social space. The space that we call society. What is society? Society is the space where the tangle of human relationships, they cross and intercross each other in a reciprocal relationship. That kind of relationship was absent, and is absent in his novels. Similarly, his novels do not portray the American family and its whereabouts, either from inside the family or from outside the family. Some of my friends urged me to talk on John Updike. Yes, I'm an Updike scholar. I didn't talk on John Updike. simply because of the fact that Updike is unknown to many of you. But should you go through the short stories and the novels of John Updike, you will find that he is possibly the American novelist who examines the middle class American life, the domestic life in suburb America from within itself. You can examine a family from without. You can also examine a family from within. Hemingway doesn't do anything of this. And finally, most importantly, Hemingway's novels and most of his short stories, although I'm not concentrating on his short stories today, do not deal with any of the typical American themes. And I have jotted down some of the typical American themes. Most students of American literature and most students of history and pol science, they are also aware of some of these. For example, he doesn't talk about American Revolutionary War and the Wars of Independence. He doesn't talk about American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. He doesn't talk about the slavery and American slavery and the abolitionist movement. He doesn't talk about the civil rights movement in 1960s. He doesn't talk about anything of his contemporary American politics. He doesn't talk about American foreign policy. He doesn't talk about the Vietnam episode because he was not supposed to talk about that. This is a mistake. I was thinking of the American things, but Hemingway passed away in 1961 when that episode did not come into being. So this is a mistake. I'm sorry about that. Neither did he talk about the Cold War between USSR and USA. He didn't talk about the frontier myth, which is so central to any American novel or American literature. He didn't talk about American multiculturalism. He didn't talk about American dream. He didn't talk about the swinging 60s. 1960s is called swinging 60s. So many things were happening at that time. For example, civil rights movement were going on. In 1963, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, JFK, he was assassinated. In the next year, another great leader, Martin Luther King Jr., he was assassinated. And when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, riots spread out and broke out in America in 168 cities. Can you imagine? 168 cities. The next year, the candidate for presidential election, Malcolm X, he was also assassinated. These things were happening in 1960s. American democracy, as students of political science know that American democracy is the oldest democracy, and the first book on democracy was written in America. He doesn't talk about American exceptionalism. He doesn't talk about the sexual revolution, which was just coming when he was about to bid goodbye to novels. Nor does he talk about the American popular culture and the American religions, the multiplicity of religions, beginning from Puritanism to the multiple religions existent in America. So the question therefore remains, that is the rationale. The question that naturally follows is, what then is American about Ernest Hemingway if we were to consider him as a representative American writer at all? My second section, as I told you, this will be an overview. This is a photograph of Hemingway. This is a brief life sketch. Hemingway was born on July 21st, 1899 in Oak Park, Illinois. His father was a doctor, his mother was an opera singer, but his mother was more dominant than his father, and his mother wished that all the children along with her husband should follow her. Hemingway inherited, among other things from his father, he inherited his father's love for fishing and hunting. In some of his novels you'll find detailed descriptions of fishing and hunting. And he also inherited his father's bouts of depression. In 1928, his father committed suicide out of such a bout of depression, and some critics suggest that his father was driven to suicide by his mother, which is why Hemingway developed an antipathy towards his mother. And later on in 1961, when his fourth marriage foundered, Hemingway shot himself. He shot himself, he committed suicide. In this context, I want to share one experience during my first visit to the States. When I was coming back, Professor James Plath, who is a Hemingway scholar, he was kind enough to give me a ride. In America they call it ride, not drive. He was kind enough to give me a ride in his car. So I asked him many questions about Hemingway. So I also asked him about his suicide. Then he told me that that was a family depression case. He had a long history, his father did the same thing, and he inherited this kind of psychological disorder from his father. In 1917, Hemingway joins the Indian Red Cross, International Red Cross. First he wanted to join as a soldier, but there was no scope, so he joined as an ambulance driver on the Italian front. On July 8, 1980, he received a fatal wound by a shrapnel near the Piave River in Italy, and he was convalescing in the hospital in Milan. In the hospital, when he was convalescing, he fell in love with a nurse whose name is, she was actually an American nurse. Her father was a German. Her name was Agnes von Kurowski. And Agnes von Kurowski was 8 years senior to Hemingway. He was head over heels in love with this nurse, and this has been fictionalized in his novel A Farewell to Arms. I will talk about her later on. But this relationship did not consummate in marriage. In 1920, when he came back, after the war was over, he came back to America, his home, and he had some illicit liaison with so many women. He had been leading a bohemian lifestyle, and in 1920 he was kicked out from his own house by his mother for spending most of his nights outside, and for his alleged sleeping with 2 girls. Actually what happened was that the mother of one of these girls came to his family and lodged a complaint against Hemingway to Hemingway's mother, and immediately he was rusticated from his own house. And then in 1920 he joined as the editor of the Cooperative Commonwealth, weekly magazine published by the Cooperative Society of America. On September 3, 1921, he marries Elizabeth Hadley Richardson, that was his first wife. And in December, the couple moved to Paris, where Hemingway befriends, among others, Ezra Pound, Gertrude Stein, Fitzgerald, and his wife Zelda. Hemingway was influenced by Ezra Pound's imagism. That's why in Hemingway's writings we'll find choppy, crispy expressions instead of metaphorical expressions as we find in Victorian fiction. In summer 1923, the couple moved to Spain and to attend the fiesta. It's a kind of carnival of say 8 days. The name of the place in Spain was San Fermin, which has been fictionalized also in The Sun Also Rises. In January 1924, Hemingway joins as the editor of Toronto Star Weekly. During this time, he wrote a host of his successful short stories. Hemingway and Hadley returned to Paris, where Hemingway befriends Pauline Pfeiffer, who would gradually replace Hadley as his second wife after his separation with Hadley in 1926. In 1926, he produces his best novel, The Sun Also Rises. It is considered to be his best novel by critics. Hemingway, it is said about, I have jotted down a funny comment about Hemingway. by a critic whose name is Mollek Galagham. He says that Ernest needs a new woman for every new book. And that is how it stands if we map out his career, his canonical career, along with his personal life. That is how it stands. When he married Elizabeth Hadley Richardson, he wrote that famous book, The Sun Also Rises. When he had an affair with Pauline Pfeiffer, he wrote A Farewell to Arms, although the actual impetus and the inspiration was Agnes von Kureski, that nurse who served him. Then Martha Gellhorn, when he was writing that novel For Whom the Bell Tolls. And finally, Mary Welsh, when he wrote his fifth novel, Across the River and Into the Trees. Now some of the photographs, he was very young on your left-hand side, and on your right-hand side he was quite middle-aged. This is a photograph of his house where he was born, that is Oak Park in Illinois, suburb of Chicago. These are the picture of his family. The man sitting here with a beard, he's Hemingway's father, and she's Hemingway's mother. She's on the left-hand side, the girl standing there, she's the eldest sister of Hemingway. And Hemingway stands here on the right-hand side. You notice one thing, Hemingway's mother, she had a wish that his sons should be dressed like little girls. And that's why she chose the hairstyle of Hemingway also. Hemingway in the battlefield, old Hemingway, of angling and hunting. This is the photograph of that lady, the nurse, with whom he fell in love in Milan Hospital. And there are film versions of Farewell to Arms also. This is photograph of his first wife, Elizabeth Hadley Richardson. Hemingway and their son, whose name was actually Bumby, was the nickname given to this child, the eldest son of Hemingway. The second wife, Pauline Pfeiffer. This is the third wife, from the left-hand side, standing this one, standing that lady. That is the third wife, Martha Gellhorn. Sorry, I could not find out the photograph of his fourth wife. That is not necessary here. This was the present house of Hemingway, which has been transformed into a museum by the Hemingway Society. Now these are the major novels of Hemingway. The Sun Also Rises, 1926, Farewell to Arms, 1929, To Have and Have Not, 1937, For Whom the Bell Tolls, 1940, Across the River and Into the Trees, 1950, and The Old Man and the Sea, 1952. And for this novel, he was awarded the Nobel Prize after 2 years in 1954. Now, if we consider the local and setting of Hemingway's novels, we'll find that the locals are not within America simply because of the fact that throughout his life, he shuttled through glamorous and exotic places around the world. And this is the fact that led him to pitch his fictional tent in foreign shores rather than in American shores. He traveled, for example, through Paris, Spain, Havana, Sun Valley, Cuba, Italy, Austria, among other places. This might be another reason for the enduring popularity of his novels, which often read like travelogues rendered in his brisk and crisp journalistic style. And these are the setting. The Sun Also Rises is set in Paris and Spain. The Farewell to Arms in Italy. To Have and Have Not, that is his only novel that is set in America, that is in Key West, where he lived later, in Florida. But then it is also the weakest novel and not a representative Hemingway novel. For Whom the Bell Tolls, it is set in Segovia in Spain during the Spanish Civil War, or to put it more precisely, in 1937. Across the River and Into the Trees It is set in Italy, not only in Trieste but also in Florence. And The Old Man and the Sea, most of you have read this novel. It is set in Cuba about the Cuban fisherman. Major preoccupations that we find in his novels. The Sun Also Rises relates the tale of American expatriate Jake Bounce, who becomes sexually impotent following a plane crash. The novel poignantly depicts the depression, disillusionment, alcoholism, sexual permissiveness, and existential anguish of a group of expatriates who are broadly hailed as the lost generation. In fact, one of the two epigraphs of this novel has been provided by Gertrude Strain, that is, "You are all a lost generation." Through the episodes of war, veterans like Jake Barnes, who is the hero of this novel, Robert Kahn, Bill Gorton, and Mike Campbell, the novel amply brings out the moral vacuity of dissolute post-war life and has often been compared as a fictional version of Eliot's The Wasteland. We come to the next novel, A Farewell to Arms. A Farewell to Arms is a recast of Hemingway's liaison with the Red Cross nurse, Agnes von Kureski, the nurse who attends to him in Milan. Set in Italy, it is basically a love story between the soldier Frederick Henry Hemingway and the nurse Catherine Barclay Angus, who is Angus actually. And at the end of the novel, what happens is that this marriage, this relationship consummates in marriage, but as she was going to give birth to her child, the child lives but the mother dies. And it is the poignant death of the mother, that is Catherine, that invests the novel with a kind of pathos and despair, which were essentially subjective. To Have and Have Not is the only novel that is set in America, and it examines the effects of the Great Depression of 1930s. And the character is Harry Morgan, who decides to smuggling to offset the financial straits induced by the Great Depression. For Whom the Bell Tolls, it is set in Spain in 1937 during the Spanish Civil War, when the hero of the novel, that is Robert Jordan, he leaves America and gets enlisted with the Republican side and resorts to a kind of guerrilla fighting, and those guerrillas were aiming at blowing up a fascist-controlled bridge. That is all the novel is engaged with. It details it in a more violent way. When we come to the next novel, that is Across the River and Into the Trees, we find that it deals with the reminiscences of the old Colonel Cantwell, and this reminiscence is mostly couched in stream of consciousness technique about war and about other adventures in Italy, particularly hunting, fishing, ducking, bullfighting even. And when we come to the final novel of Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, we know the story that an old man, Santiago, he goes to the sea, and for 84 days he has one obsession in life, that is to catch the marlin fish, and finally he catches it. But when he was about to bring it, the ship was being pounced upon by sharks who eat the flesh of the fish. And when he returns to the shore, it is not the fish but the skeleton of the fish that he brings. And at this moment the old man makes a comment, but man is not made for defeat. A man can be defeated. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. That was his famous comment. So it deals with the monomaniac obsession of the old Cuban fisherman Santiago regarding his obsession with catching the big marlin fish. Now my point is, barring all these 5 novels, or barring rather To Have and Have Not, what is American about the other novels? John Updike, who was essentially an American writer and who examined America from within and who examined the domestic life of the middle class from within, he has a criticism about Hemingway. He says we must try to write about ourselves and write about a continent and a social system which is in some ways still wild. There is something improvised about the American way of life and American art. When you look at what we view as our classics, this is a kind of criticism of Updike regarding the so-called American classics. When you look at what we view as our own classics, you are struck by how peripheral they are to ordinary experience. Updike's argument is that, his contention is that, most of the American novelists could not sum up the American situation properly. I mean, how many of us go on whaling ships? Whaling ships, you know, Melville in his famous novel, Moby Dick, he goes on whaling ships. How many of us go on whaling ships? Hemingway was also a great avoider of the American landscape. And this I have said in another way. He did not like to write about what went on inside the American home. And this emphasis, I have deliberately put it into emphasis, within emphasis. This was his interview. That interview was taken in 1987 with McNally and Dean Stover. This is something, what is known as the Hemingway Code of a hero. Hemingway created an alternative code of a hero. And according to him, a hero must be courageous, but must avoid death at all costs. A hero does not have self-pity, but it does have self-discipline and control. That is important, discipline, control. A hero realizes that death is in all things, therefore he tries to live life to the fullest possible degree. A hero is also a man of action. A hero practices humility, doesn't discuss his achievements. A hero faces his greatest trial alone and tests himself to his limit. A hero exhibits, quote unquote, this is a very famous quotation of Hemingway, grace under pressure. Hemingway creates what is known as a new American hero. This new hero was introduced by Hemingway, who served as an ambulance driver during the First World War. The new hero was a man of action, a warrior, a tough competitor, had a code of honor, courage, endurance, and showed grace under pressure. The most important aspect of the new American hero was that he was completely disillusioned with the American tradition. Hemingway and the new American hero derived hope from human decency, bravery, competency, and skill. Hemingway, we say that he was one of the exponents of modernism, so let us just sum up some of the tenets of modernism that he practiced. There is an emphasis on both experimentation in style and form, reflecting the fragmentation of society. Rejection of traditional themes, subjects, and forms. And there is a disillusionment and loss of faith in the American dream, although he does not precisely examine the American dream in its proper shape from within America. Rejection of sentimentality and artificiality. Rejection of infallible heroes. Hero means hero will never die, not like that. Heroes are always amenable to death, amenable to failure, amenable to loss, and everything that is negative. He is always in favor of a hero who is flawed and disillusioned, but demonstrates grace under pressure. Interest in the inner workings of human mind, and this is expressed through his stream of consciousness technique. These are some of the quotations of Hemingway. This is from The Old Man and the Sea. Man is not made for defeat. The previous line was, or the next line is, man can be destroyed but not defeated. The best way to find out if you can trust somebody is to trust them. This was a comment that he made because when he found that human relationships are breaking up, so human faith is breaking up, he made this comment. Courage is grace under pressure. Now, this is the fourth and the most important section of my argument. I have talked about the research gap. I have talked about the rationale of my argument. Now I will come to my conclusions, and in my conclusion, I will try to defend Hemingway as an American writer. Good and great literature may not necessarily be country specific or culture specific. On the contrary, great literature has the ability to transcend socio-cultural and spatio-temporal parameters, and thus achieves a kind of universality. Thus, it does not matter whether a text deals with the Prince of Denmark. My students and my colleagues know who is the Prince of Denmark, or the Moor of Venice. I'm talking about Hamlet, I'm talking about Othello, Moor of Venice, or the general and later King of Scotland, or the Emperor of Rome, or the Queen of Egypt. Or even it may deal with the darkest parts of Congo, as Conrad did in Heart of Darkness. Or it may also deal with the Aran Islands, as Synge did in Riders to the Sea. What matters is whether those texts have been successful to capture the universal appeal or not. That is more important than the locales. Geography doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. What matters is that whether Hemingway has been successful to achieve this kind of transcendental quality in transcending the regional specificity and cultural specificity. Hemingway may not have set his novels in America. He may not have dwelt on typical American issues. He may not have discussed any social, political, cultural, or religious issues rocking and racking America for ages. He may not have even poked his nose into the American family. He may not have even captured the quotidian normal flux of day-to-day American life. And yet, he has stood the test of time because of his universal themes, some of which I have jotted down here. What were his themes about? The disenchantment and disillusionment, the moral desiccation and existentialist anguish of man in the post-war scenario. Restoration of virility, struggle, fortitude, courage to stave off the onslaughts of these negative factors of life. In fact, if you make a kind of helicopter view of Hemingway's novels or fictional canon, his phase can be divided, or his fictional phase can be divided into two parts. On the first part falls the phase of disillusionment, the negative phase, the dark phase. And this has been embodied in the earlier novels like The Sun Also Rises, A Farewell to Arms, To Have and Have Not, and For Whom the Bell Tolls. And when you come to the later phase, that is the phase where he is trying to restore courage, virility. That is the bright phase of Hemingway. He is trying to restore a kind of courage and virility. And these are represented in novels, in two novels, the remaining two novels, the last two novels. Creation of the new American hero who embodies these values. He also talks about, his novels talk about the instability of human relationship in terms of love and loss. Capturing the spirit of adventurousness of the early American settlers in America. As you know, America, the nation or the place that we call America today, the nation that we call America today is the product of